Salira sat on the long metal bench at the far edge of the selection hall, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The bench was cold, but she did not move. She had learned long ago that moving too much drew attention, and attention often brought rejection. Around her, the hall buzzed with quiet movement, boots on the floor, soft voices in many languages, screens flashing names and decisions. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and distant engine heat. This place was called a refuge station by the Interstellar Alliance. To Salira, it felt more like a waiting room where hope slowly ran out. Rows of beings sat on benches like hers. Some were tall, some small, some covered in fur or scales or metal. Many were not alone. Families sat together. Groups whispered plans. Others were approached by officials wearing alliance insignia. Names were called. Decisions were made. Some stood up with relief. Some left in silence. No one came for Salira. She had been sitting there for hours. At first, she counted the lights on the ceiling. Then she counted the times someone glanced at her and quickly looked away. Later, she stopped counting at all. Salira's appearance was not violent or frightening, but it was different enough to make others uneasy. Her skin carried a faint pale glow, like moonlight under water. Thin lines of soft color moved beneath it when she breathed, a sign of her species, internal energy flow. Her eyes were large and dark, reflecting more light than most species were comfortable with. She kept them lowered now, staring at the floor. She had heard the whispers before. Unknown origin, unstable biology, high risk. Those words followed her across systems and stations. She never argued, she never begged. She only waited because waiting was all she had left. An Alliance officer stopped a few steps away, checked a datapad, then frowned slightly. His gaze brushed over Salira and moved on. He walked past her bench without slowing. Her chest tightened, but her face stayed calm. She was used to it. Salira thought of her home world long gone. She thought of how her people once lived quietly, helping to heal damaged lands and stabilize fragile systems. She thought of how fear spread faster than truth. How one disaster, misunderstood and blamed on her kind, had turned the galaxy against them. One by one, her people disappeared. She was one of the last. A soft tone echoed through the hall. Final evaluations were nearing completion. A few beings stood hurriedly, hoping for last-minute reconsideration. Most officials were already turning away, tired, their shifts nearly over. Salira remained seated. She told herself not to hope. Hope hurt more when it was taken away. Footsteps approached from the far entrance. Heavy footsteps, slower than most. She did not look up. Many beings passed by her bench every cycle. This would be no different, but the footsteps stopped. There was a pause, a long one. Then, to her surprise, the bench shifted slightly as someone sat down beside her. Salira's breath caught. No one had sat next to her since she arrived on the station. Slowly, cautiously, she turned her head. The being beside her was human. She recognized the species from Alliance records. Humans were newer to interstellar politics, but already known for their wide range of expressions and unpredictable behavior. This one wore a dark uniform marked with military symbols. His posture was straight but relaxed, his hands resting on his knees. He did not look at her right away. He simply sat. The human looked forward as if they were both just two beings waiting for their names to be called. Salira's instincts screamed at her to move, to make space, to apologize for existing too close. But something about his presence held her still. He was not tense. He was not judging. He did not smell of fear or discomfort. Minutes passed in silence. Finally, the human turned his head slightly and looked at her, not scanning, not analyzing, but meeting her eyes at the same level. "Long day," he said gently. His voice was calm, deep, and steady. Simple words, no sharp edges. Salira hesitated. Speaking often led to questions she did not want to answer, but the way he waited without pressure made her respond before she could stop herself. "Yes," she said softly. He nodded as if her answer mattered. I'm Ethan, she blinked. No title, no rank, just a name. I am Celira, she replied. It's nice to meet you, Celira, Ethan said. No hesitation, no sign of doubt. Around them, the hall continued its slow closing rhythm. Officials packed away tools. Guards shifted positions. Still, Ethan stayed seated. Celira studied him from the corner of her eye. His uniform showed signs of wear, scratches, faded patches, small repairs done by hand. This was not a ceremonial soldier. This was someone who had seen real service. "Are you waiting for an assignment?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "Already have one." She felt confusion rise. "Then, why are you here?" Ethan glanced around the hall, then back at her. "Because I saw you sitting alone." Celira did not know how to respond to that. It was such a simple reason, yet no one else had acted on it. "They will not choose me," she said after a moment. She did not sound sad, just honest. Ethan leaned back slightly, still keeping his shoulders square with hers. "Maybe, maybe not." "You do not understand," she said. "They never do." "Then help me understand," he replied. Something in his tone broke through her defenses. It was not curiosity mixed with fear like others had. It was not obligation. It was interest, plain and human. She told him small things at first, that she had been traveling alone for many cycles, that her species had no official status, that she had learned to survive quietly. Ethan listened. He did not interrupt. When officials passed nearby and glanced at them, he did not move away. At one point, a junior officer stopped and cleared his throat. "Sir, the hall is closing if you are finished." "I'm fine right here," Ethan said calmly. The officer hesitated, then nodded and walked away. Celira felt something warm spread through her chest. Not excitement, not joy, something steadier, something she barely remembered. Being acknowledged. "You are not afraid?" she asked suddenly. Ethan considered the question. "I've been afraid before," he said. "This isn't one of those times." She looked down at her glowing hands. "Others are." "Others don't know you," he replied. That sentence stayed with her. The lights in the hall dimmed slightly, signaling the end of the cycle. Most benches were empty now. Celira realized with a start that she was no longer the last one left. She was not alone. An announcement echoed through the hall stating that unresolved cases would be reviewed later. It was a familiar message, one she had heard many times before. Ethan stood up. Instinctively, Celira did the same. For a brief moment, she feared he was leaving. Instead, he stepped to the side and gestured toward the exit, walking beside her, not ahead, not behind. As they moved through the quiet hall, Celira felt eyes on them, curious, confused, some even surprised. A human soldier walking next to someone marked as unwanted. At the doorway, Ethan stopped. "I don't know what the Alliance will decide," he said, "but I can promise you this, you won't be invisible while I'm here." Celira looked up at him, her eyes shining brighter than before. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered. Ethan gave a small, respectful nod. Then they were wrong. As they stepped into the corridor beyond the hall, Celira felt something change deep inside her. The galaxy had not suddenly become kind. Her past had not vanished. Her future was still uncertain. But for the first time in a very long time, she walked forward believing that she might be worth standing beside. And somewhere in the vast silence of space, hope quietly returned. The corridor outside the selection hall was quieter than Celira expected. The bright noise of many voices faded behind them, replaced by the low hum of the station's systems. Long white lights ran along the ceiling, casting soft shadows on the smooth metal floor. Celira walked carefully, half a step behind Ethan, unsure where they were going but unwilling to stop. She had followed others before, usually officials or guards, and those walks always ended the same way, with closed doors and polite rejection. This felt different. Ethan did not rush. He matched her pace without saying a word, as if he understood that moving too fast would make her pull away. After several turns, they reached a wide observation corridor. A transparent wall opened to the stars beyond. Distant ships drifted slowly, their lights blinking like calm, patient eyes. Ethan stopped near the window and rested his hands on the railing. He did not speak right away. He let the silence exist. Celira stood beside him, her glowing skin reflecting faint starlight. She folded her hands again, a habit she could not break. "This place is beautiful," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, makes you feel small, but in a good way." She thought about that. "My people used to watch the stars when things were hard. We believed the universe listened." "Do you still believe that?" he asked. She hesitated. "I am not sure anymore." Ethan turned slightly toward her. "I think the universe listens through people. Sometimes it just needs someone willing to speak up." Celira looked at him, surprised by the thought. Before she could respond, soft footsteps approached from behind. Two Alliance officers slowed when they noticed Ethan. One of them recognized the markings on his uniform and straightened. "Human soldier," the officer said carefully. His gaze flicked to Celira and back. "You are not scheduled for escort duty." "I know," Ethan replied calmly. The officer frowned. "Then why are you accompanying this individual?" Celira felt the familiar tightening in her chest. She prepared herself to step away to spare Ethan trouble, but before she could move, Ethan spoke. "Because she's not cargo," he said. "She's a person." The officers exchanged glances. One of them cleared his throat. "Her file is complicated." "Most people's are," Ethan answered. The officers said nothing more. After a moment they nodded stiffly and continued down the corridor. Celira stared after them, stunned. "You did not have to say that," she said softly. Ethan looked confused. "Sure I did." "No one ever does," she replied. They stayed at the window for a while longer. Ethan asked her about her travels, where she had been, what stations she remembered, what she missed most. No one had asked her questions like that in years. Usually others only asked about her biology, her risks, her limits. She found herself answering honestly. She told him about a station near a dying star, where her people once helped stabilize the radiation fields. She told him about learning to cook simple meals from recycled nutrients. She told him about sleeping in cargo bays and unused maintenance rooms. Ethan listened, his expression serious but not pitying. "You shouldn't have had to live like that," he said quietly. She gave a small, sad smile. "It was safer." "For who?" he asked. She had no answer. A service drone floated past, projecting a soft blue light. It paused near them. "Attention," it said. "Unassigned individuals must report to temporary lodging or exit the station within one cycle." Celira stiffened. She had heard that message many times before. Ethan nodded once. "Thanks." The drone drifted away. Celira lowered her gaze. "I should go," she said. "I do not wish to cause you trouble." Ethan shook his head. "You're not causing trouble, but yeah, we should get you somewhere safe." "Get me?" she repeated. He glanced at her, then smiled slightly. "Temporary lodging isn't great, but it beats sleeping near engine vents." "Come on." They walked together through several corridors until they reached a quieter section of the station. Here, the lights were dimmer and the walls showed signs of age. Ethan keyed a code into a panel and a small door slid open. Inside was a modest room, clean, simple. A sleeping platform, a small table, a sanitation unit. Nothing fancy but private. Celira stepped inside slowly as if afraid it might vanish. "This is for you," Ethan said. "At least for now." She turned to him, her eyes wide. "Why?" "Because everyone deserves a door they can close," he said. Her hands trembled slightly. She pressed them together to hide it. "You do not even know me," she said. "I know enough," he replied. "You waited without anger, you spoke without lies, and you didn't ask for anything." She swallowed hard. "I will bring food later," Ethan continued, "and I'll check in tomorrow if that's okay." "Yes," she said quickly, then paused. If you wish." He nodded, stepping back toward the doorway. Before leaving, he stopped. "Oh," he added, "people might stare." "Humans have that effect sometimes. Try not to worry." After he left, the door slid shut with a soft hiss. Celira stood alone in the room, listening to the faint sounds of the station. She sat on the sleeping platform and placed her hand against the wall, feeling the steady vibration of life around her. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to rest. The next cycle, the station buzzed with quiet talk. Word spread quickly about the human soldier who had sat beside the unwanted one, about how he walked with her openly, about how he spoke to officers without fear. Some laughed it off. Humans are strange, they said. Others watched more closely. When Celira stepped into the public dining area later that day, conversations paused. She felt the weight of many eyes on her. Her instinct was to retreat, but then she saw Ethan standing near a food dispenser, waiting. He waved lightly when he saw her, as if greeting an old friend. She walked toward him, her steps slow but steady. As they stood together, Ethan handed her a tray. He did not rush her. He did not explain. He simply stayed. A nearby alien whispered, "Why is a human eating with her?" Another replied, "I don't know, but look at how he treats her." Ethan pulled out a chair, not across from her but beside her, and sat down. Celira felt something shift again, not just inside her but around her. The space between her and the rest of the galaxy felt slightly smaller. She was still unwanted by many, but one human sat beside her like she mattered. And somehow that began to change everything. The dining area slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but something had already changed. Celira could feel it. Conversations resumed, trays moved, footsteps echoed, but the looks people gave her were different now. Not all were kind. Some were confused, some were uneasy, yet fewer were openly hostile. Ethan ate quietly beside her, giving her space while still being present. He did not stare when she struggled with the human-style utensils. He did not comment when she paused, listening to sounds only she could hear through the station walls. He treated her actions as normal, because to him they were. After the meal, they walked through a wider corridor that connected several public sections. Celira noticed how others stepped aside, not for her but for Ethan. Humans carried a reputation now, not feared but respected. Still, Ethan never used that space to push ahead. He stayed level with her, matching her pace. "Do they know who you are?" she asked quietly. "Some do," he said. "Most don't care. And yet they listen to you," he shrugged. "Sometimes listening is easier than understanding." That made sense to her. They stopped near a wall display showing news from across the Alliance, political updates, trade disputes, border tensions. Celira watched the scrolling text without really seeing it. "Ethan," she said after a moment, her voice low, "if they learn what I am, you should walk away." He looked at her, not surprised. "Is that what happened before?" She nodded slowly. "Every time." He did not answer right away. They were interrupted by a sharp tone, an official signal. Two Alliance guards approached, their armor polished, their movements careful but firm. One of them spoke. "Celira of the unregistered species," the guard said. "You are required to report for additional evaluation." Her body tensed instantly. Her glow dimmed, reacting to stress. She took a half step back without realizing it. Ethan moved with her, not in front yet, but close. "I thought her case was delayed," Ethan said calmly. "It was," the guard replied. "New information has come to light." Celira's breath grew shallow. She knew what that meant. Someone had looked deeper. Someone had found old records. Fear spread through her like cold water. "I will go," she said quickly. "Please, there is no need." "I'll come with you," Ethan said. The guards hesitated. "This is not standard procedure." "I'm aware," Ethan replied. "Still coming." After a tense pause, the guards nodded. "Very well, but understand this is a high-level review." They led them through restricted corridors, past sealed doors and guarded intersections. The air felt heavier here, more controlled. Celira recognized this place. She had been here before on other stations, rooms where decisions were made without her voice. They entered a chamber shaped like a half-circle. Several officials sat behind a raised platform. Screens floated before them, displaying data streams. Salira stood alone in the center. Ethan stepped beside her. An official with silver markings along his crest leaned forward. "Human soldier, this review does not concern you." "It concerns her," Ethan said, "and I concern myself with that." Murmurs spread across the chamber. "Salira," another official said, her tone colder, "your species classification has been identified." Salira closed her eyes. "There is no need for secrecy anymore," the official continued. "Your people are known across Alliance history." Salira felt the old shame rise. Memories pressed in, worlds burning, fingers pointing, voices blaming. "You are of the lumen kind," the official said. "A species associated with system destabilization events." Ethan felt her tremble. "That is not the truth," Salira whispered. "The records are clear," the official replied. "Your kind appears before multiple collapses." Ethan stepped forward now, placing himself fully between Salira and the council. "Appears before," he repeated, "not causes." The chamber went quiet. "Correlation is not guilt," Ethan continued. "Even humans learned that lesson the hard way." The silver-crested official frowned. "This is Alliance law. And laws change," Ethan said, "especially when they're wrong." Another screen lit up. Old images, broken planets, evacuation fleets, tragedy frozen in time. Salira could not look. Her hands shook openly now. "I tried to help," she said, her voice breaking. "We always tried." Ethan turned slightly, lowering his voice just for her. "I know." "How?" she asked. "Because you stayed," he said. "Because you're still here." The officials exchanged uneasy looks. "The human fleet has been monitoring Lumen activity," one said slowly, "without Alliance approval." Ethan did not deny it. "We monitor a lot of things others fear." "What did you find?" the official asked. Ethan looked around the chamber. "That the Lumen kind don't destroy systems, they stabilize them. They appear before collapse because they sense it. They stay too long because they try to fix what others abandon." Silence followed. Salira lifted her head, eyes wide. "That is true," she said. "We feel the imbalance, we cannot ignore it." The silver-crested official leaned back. "If this is true, why did collapses still occur?" "Because you removed them," Ethan said. "Because you panicked." Data shifted on the screens. Human research, energy readings, timelines. The truth unfolded slowly, painfully. Some officials looked away, others stared. Finally, one spoke. "This changes things." Before the chamber could respond further, an alarm sounded, low and urgent. A technician rushed in. "There is instability in the outer ring." "Power fluctuations, structural stress," Salira gasped. She felt it now, a deep vibration through the station's core. Fear rippled through her instincts, but alongside it came clarity. "It is happening," she said. "The station is off balance." "Can you stop it?" an official asked sharply. She hesitated. "I can try, but I cannot do it alone." Ethan turned to the council. "Let her work." They hesitated only a moment. Salira moved quickly now, guided through maintenance corridors to the station's core stabilizer. Engineers stepped back as she approached, unsure but desperate. She placed her hands against the energy field. Light flared softly around her. Not violent, not destructive, gentle, correcting. Ethan stood nearby, watching, ready. Slowly the vibration eased, the alarms quieted. The station steadied. Salira collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Ethan was there instantly, steadying her. The engineers stared in silence. Later, back in the chamber, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, the silver-crested official stood. "The Alliance has made a grave mistake," he said. Salira looked up, disbelief in her eyes. "You are no longer classified as unwanted," the official continued. "Your people will be reevaluated." Ethan exhaled slowly. Salira felt tears rise, glowing softly as they fell. She was not alone anymore, and the galaxy had finally begun to listen. The station felt different after that day. Not louder, not brighter, but heavier, as if everyone now walked with new thoughts pressing on them. Salira noticed it in the way people paused when she passed. in the way conversations softened instead of stopping completely. Fear had not vanished, but it was no longer the only thing they felt. She spent most of the next cycle resting. Using her abilities had drained her deeply. Her glow was faint now, barely visible beneath her skin. Ethan checked on her often, bringing food and quietly making sure she was comfortable. He never hovered. He simply stayed nearby, like a steady presence anchoring her to the moment. "You saved the station," he said once, as she sat near the window of her room, watching ships move slowly through space. "I only helped it breathe again," she replied. "It wanted to survive." He smiled at that. "Sounds familiar." News traveled fast across the Alliance, faster than Salira expected. Reports spread about the incident, about the Lumenkind, about the human data that contradicted decades of belief. Some stations reacted with curiosity. Others reacted with anger. Emergency councils were called. Delegates argued across light years. Some demanded immediate protection for Salira and others like her. Some demanded isolation. A few even demanded removal of humans from Alliance systems for interfering without permission. Salira heard fragments of it all through station broadcasts and whispers in corridors. Each time fear rose in her chest again, old habits returning. She wondered if this moment of acceptance would fade just like all the others. Ethan noticed the change in her before she spoke. "You're pulling back," he said gently. She looked down. "This is when it usually ends." He leaned against the wall, arms crossed loosely. "Then let's make it different." "How?" she asked. "I am one being, they are an alliance." Ethan's expression hardened slightly, not with anger but with resolve. "You're not one anymore." Later that cycle, a human fleet arrived. It did not come in formation meant for war. No weapons charged, no threats broadcast. The ships positioned themselves at a respectful distance, their presence calm but undeniable. The station trembled with reaction. Humans requested an official hearing. Salira stood at the edge of the main council chamber, watching delegates arrive from many species. The room filled with color, movement, tension. Ethan stood beside her, silent. She felt very small again. When the session began, a human admiral stepped forward. Older, calm, eyes sharp with experience. "We are not here to challenge the Alliance," the admiral said. "We are here to correct a lie." Data filled the chamber, years of research, quiet observations. Rescue missions where Lumenkind had stayed behind after evacuations, trying to hold systems together long enough for others to escape. Energy readings showing stabilization, not destruction. Salira watched the faces of the delegates change. Some softened, some hardened further. One delegate stood sharply. "Even if this is true, their presence attracts instability." "No," the admiral replied. "Instability attracts them." Silence followed. "They feel fractures in space-time and energy flow," the admiral continued. "They go where things are already breaking. They do not cause collapse, they fight it." Eyes turned toward Salira. She felt the weight of that attention, but this time she did not shrink. She stepped forward. "My people were never warriors," she said, her voice steady despite the fear still inside her. "We were caretakers. When the galaxy turned away, we stayed too long. And when things still failed, we were blamed because we were there." A murmur rippled through the chamber. One delegate asked quietly, "Why didn't you leave?" Salira answered honestly. "Because leaving meant letting everything die alone." That answer settled into the room like gravity. The council recessed for hours. Salira waited in a side chamber with Ethan. She sat, hands clasped tightly again. The habit returned under stress. "What if they decide against us?" she asked. Ethan crouched slightly so they were eye level. "Then humans will still stand with you." "That could start conflict," she said. He nodded. "Sometimes doing the right thing does." She studied his face, searching for doubt. She found none. When the council returned, the atmosphere had shifted. The silver-crested official stood once more. "The Alliance recognizes that fear guided our past decisions," he said. "That fear cost lives. It ends now." Salira's breath caught. The Lumenkind will be reclassified, the official continued. Protected, studied with consent, integrated where possible. Some delegates protested, others nodded. And Salira, he added, looking directly at her, you will serve as your people's representative if you choose. The words struck her harder than any rejection ever had. She whispered. You, he confirmed. Her first instinct was to refuse. Responsibility felt heavier than exile, but then she remembered the stations that had fallen, the worlds that might still be saved. She looked at Ethan. He gave a small nod. You don't have to be perfect, he said. Just be you. Salira turned back to the council. I accept, she said. The chamber erupted in mixed reaction, surprise, debate, reluctant applause, but the decision stood. In the cycles that followed, Salira's life changed faster than she could process. She attended meetings. She spoke on behalf of a scattered people who had almost been erased. She explained their abilities, their limits, their pain. Humans supported her openly. Some other species began to listen. Not everyone accepted it. There were protests on distant stations, sabotage attempts, whispers of extremists who believed the old stories and refused to let them go. One evening, as Salira walked with Ethan through a quieter corridor, alarms sounded again, sharp and different. Security forces rushed past them. What is happening? She asked. Unauthorized access to the power grid, Ethan replied after checking a wrist display. Someone's trying to destabilize the station. Her senses flared instantly. She felt the imbalance spreading like a sickness. I can help, she said. I know, Ethan replied. But this time you won't do it alone. Humans moved quickly. Engineers coordinated. Security held positions. Salira stood at the core again, but now humans worked beside her, adjusting systems to support her efforts instead of resisting them. The station steadied faster than before. When it was over, Salira sank into a chair, exhausted but awake. You trusted me, she said softly. Ethan smiled. We learned from our mistakes too. Later, as she rested, Salira thought about the first day she sat alone on that bench. How small she had felt, how unwanted. Now the galaxy argued about her people not because they feared them, but because they mattered. She was still afraid sometimes, still unsure. But when she walked through the station now, she did not walk alone. And that made all the difference. The council session ended, but the echoes of it lingered through every hall of the station. Beings paused in corridors, checking reports, whispering to each other. Salira moved carefully among them, walking beside Ethan. For the first time, she felt safe enough to lift her head, let her glow shine faintly without hiding, and let her presence be acknowledged. It was not arrogance, just recognition that she existed and that now the galaxy could not ignore her. Ethan walked steadily beside her, a constant reminder that someone saw her not as a problem or a risk, but as a being worth standing beside. He had earned her trust in a way that no one else had managed in cycles, and that trust now stretched across the station like invisible threads connecting her to stability. Do you think they'll accept us fully? She asked softly, her gaze on the distant stars visible through the observation windows. Ethan looked at her, then at the stars, then back to her. Acceptance isn't instant. Some will never change, but some will, and we'll start there. Salira considered his words. She had spent decades believing she would never be accepted by anyone. Now, she had proof that the right presence, someone willing to simply stand with her, could shift even the strongest tides of fear. Over the next cycles, Salira became more than a survivor. She became a representative, a bridge between humans and the Lumenkind, a voice for her scattered people. She moved through council chambers, through stations, through empty corridors, speaking calmly, explaining quietly, showing patience where others had assumed she would be dangerous. Humans accompanied her on these visits, ensuring her safety but not overshadowing her. Ethan remained nearby but not intrusive, offering guidance when needed and support when she faltered. Delegates who had once sneered now listened. Some species were reluctant, some cautious, some openly curious. Salira welcomed questions, answered carefully, always steady, always honest. It was exhausting work, but it was meaningful. For the first time, she felt like she belonged, not because fear forced her to leave, not because duty required her to obey, but because someone had chosen to sit beside her like she mattered. One evening, Salira and Ethan were walking through a newly constructed observation deck. The station had been repaired, upgraded, and reinforced after the previous destabilization. The glow of distant nebulae colored the walls and floor. "They built this for us?" she asked, awe in her voice. "Not just for us," Ethan said. "For everyone who needs to see beyond fear." Salira stepped closer to the window. She could see ships moving in formation outside, humans and others working together to repair satellites, stabilize energy grids, and prevent chaos. The sight filled her with hope. "I never thought I'd see this," she whispered. "Never thought anyone would care." Ethan glanced at her. "Care isn't about thought, it's about action, and you've given everyone a reason to act differently." She smiled faintly, a glow returning to her skin. "And you gave me that first reason." He shrugged lightly, though his eyes were kind. "I didn't do much, I just sat beside you." Salira shook her head. "You did more than that, you saw me when no one else would. You made me feel important, like I belonged." Ethan looked at her steadily. "You always belonged, I just reminded you." In the weeks that followed, Salira traveled to other stations, other councils, other systems. Every time she spoke, humans accompanied her, standing near but never in the spotlight. They ensured she was heard, they ensured her safety, but they never took away her authority. With each journey, Salira's confidence grew. She learned how to navigate the politics of the alliance, how to answer difficult questions, how to calm tensions between species who had long assumed the Lumenkind were a threat. During one particularly tense council meeting, a species from a neighboring sector demanded that the Lumenkind be contained in isolated zones. Their fear was palpable, their tone harsh. Salira stood, shoulders straight, glow faintly brightening as she began to speak. "You assume we are dangerous," she said calmly. "We are not. We have only ever sought to stabilize what others abandon. If you continue to act on fear, more systems will fail and more lives will be lost. We do not ask for your trust. We only ask that you allow us to act as we always have, carefully, responsibly, with the guidance of those who understand." Ethan stood beside her, silent, steady. When she finished, the chamber was quiet. No one argued further. Not because they feared her, but because they had seen her in action, because they had seen what she could do, and because a human had once chosen to sit beside her when no one else would. After the session, Salira returned to the observation deck, exhausted but alive with a quiet exhilaration. She sank onto a bench, gazing at the stars. Ethan joined her, sitting at her side without a word. For a long moment they watched the lights of the ships drift against the darkness. Then Salira spoke. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't come?" Ethan leaned back, his hands resting on the railing. "I don't think about that. I don't want to know. I only know what we can do now." "I'm glad," she said softly, "because I might never have believed I could matter." "You do," he said simply. "You always did. You just needed someone to remind you." Salira turned to him, her glow flickering with quiet emotion. For the first time she felt truly seen, not as a risk, not as a problem, not as a statistic, but as herself. The galaxy was still vast and danger still lurked. Not everyone would understand. Not every station would welcome her. But she was no longer alone. She had allies, support, and recognition. She had been given a chance to exist fully, not hidden in fear. And at her side, Ethan remained, the one who had done the simple, powerful act that had changed everything. He had sat beside her. Together, they walked toward the council chambers for another session, toward another challenge, toward the chance to make the galaxy a little safer, a little kinder. Every step felt lighter than the last, because now Salira understood the truth of belonging. It was not about being chosen by everyone, but about being seen by someone who refused to turn away. As they moved, beings from many species paused to look at them, not with fear, not with suspicion, but with curiosity and growing respect. Some smiled, some nodded, some whispered quietly, and somewhere in the distance the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Salira inhaled, steadying herself, and glanced at Ethan. He returned her gaze with a small, knowing smile. No words were needed. They had already rewritten the story that the galaxy had told about her people. They had proven that courage, kindness, and quiet persistence could overcome fear. For the first time, she truly believed that she belonged, not just on this station, not just in the Alliance, but in the vast, endless universe itself. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time, it felt like a future she could walk into with her head held high. And as they stepped forward together, the galaxy seemed to notice, just as she had been noticed once by the simple, extraordinary act of a human sitting beside her when no one else would.